In a quaint small town in the heart of the United States, where everyone knows everyone and secrets are hard to keep, lived Dr. Olivia Turner. Olivia, a devoted general practitioner, had been married to Ethan for 15 years. Together, they had built a seemingly perfect life with their 8-year-old son, Tom. Despite the town's limited resources, Olivia was the backbone of the only well-equipped hospital, dedicating herself tirelessly to her patients. The day began like any other for Olivia. She woke up early, prepared breakfast for her family, and kissed Ethan and Tom goodbye as they left for work and school. Her routine was a comforting constant in her life, providing a sense of stability in their close-knit community. Little did she know, today was destined to shatter that very stability. As Olivia entered her office at the hospital, she reviewed the list of patients for the day. It was a typical assortment of ailments and follow-up appointment. Among the names, one stood out: Emma Collins. Olivia didn't recognize the name, but in a small town, new patients were a rarity. Curious, she made a mental note to pay special attention to this new arrival. When Emma walked into Olivia's office, her youth and beauty were immediately apparent. She was in her late 20s, striking features and an air of confidence set her apart. Olivia welcomed her warmly, masking any initial feelings of unease with her professional demeanor. "Good morning, Emma. What brings you in today?" Olivia asked, smiling as she gestured for Emma to take a seat. Emma hesitated for a moment, then began to explain her symptoms. She spoke of fatigue, frequent headaches, and a general sense of malaise that had been troubling her for months. As Olivia listened, she noticed the subtle signs of stress and exhaustion etched into Emma's face. She also couldn't shake the nagging feeling she had seen Emma somewhere before. The consultation proceeded routinely. Olivia conducted a thorough examination, ordered some tests, and reassured Emma that they would get to the bottom of her health issues. But as Emma prepared to leave, she mentioned something that made Olivia's heart skip a beat. "You know, I was recommended to come here by someone you know very well. Her husband, Ethan," Emma said casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. A cold wave of shock washed over Olivia. She struggled to maintain her composure, her mind racing with questions. Why had Ethan not mentioned this? How did he know Emma? The answers were elusive, and Olivia's instincts told her there was more to this story than met the eye. After Emma left, Olivia sat in her office, staring blankly at her notes. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and suspicion. Ethan had never mentioned knowing someone like Emma, and the realization gnawed at her. She tried to focus on her other patients, but Emma's words echoed in her mind, casting a shadow over her day. That evening, Olivia's mind was still preoccupied as she prepared dinner for her family. She watched Ethan and Tom interact, their laughter and banter filling the kitchen. For a moment, she considered confronting Ethan right then and there, but she hesitated, unsure of how to broach the subject without sounding paranoid or accusatory. Instead, Olivia decided to wait. She needed more information before she could address her growing suspicions. She resolved to keep a close eye on Emma's test results and any further interactions with her. Deep down, Olivia knew that uncovering the truth would be painful, but she had to protect her family, no matter the cost. As Olivia lay in bed that night, Ethan sleeping soundly beside her, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was on the verge of a seismic shift. Pieces of the puzzle were scattered, but she was determined to fit them together, no matter where they led. Little did she know, the revelation waiting for her would not only test her marriage, but also challenge everything she thought she knew about the people closest to her. And so began Olivia's journey into a world of secrets and lies, where the truth, once revealed, would leave an indelible mark on her family forever. In the sleepy town of Oak Ridge, Ethan Turner was known for his artistic talent. As an accomplished painter and sculptor, his works adorned many of the town's public spaces and private collection. His studio, an airy, sunlit loft in a renowned atelier just outside the town, was a sanctuary where he spent countless hours lost in his creation. But behind the veneer of respectability and talent, Ethan harbored a secret, threatened to unravel his carefully constructed life. Ethan's affair with Emma began innocuously enough. She had attended one of his art classes, drawn to his reputation and the opportunity to hone her own skills. Their initial interactions were strictly professional, but it wasn't long before the connection between them deepened. Emma, captivated by Ethan's charisma and the passion he exuded for his art, found herself drawn into his world. Emma's admiration for Ethan soon turned into something more. She began staying after class to ask for his advice, their conversations stretching long into the evening. They talked about art, life, and eventually, more personal matters. Ethan, flattered by her attention and eager to escape the mundanity of his everyday life, found himself equally intrigued by Emma. One late evening, as they stood in the studio surrounded by canvases and sculptures, the boundaries between teacher and student blurred. Emma confessed her feelings, her eyes locking with Ethan. He hesitated, knowing that crossing this line would change everything. But the allure of Emma's youth and the intensity of her emotions proved too strong to resist. Their first kiss was electric, charged with the thrill of forbidden desire. In the dim light of the studio, they surrendered to their passions, their bodies entwined amidst the remnants of their creative endeavors. For Ethan, it was a moment of escape, a reprieve from the responsibilities and routine of his marriage. For Emma, it was the fulfillment of a longing she had harbored since she first laid eyes on him. As their affair progressed, Ethan found himself living a double life. By day, he was the devoted husband and father, his family blissfully unaware of his infidelity. By night, he became Emma's lover, their clandestine meetings filled with stolen glances and whispered confessions. They met in the studio, in secluded corners of town, and once even in a nearby city where they could disappear into the anonymity of a hotel room. Ethan's feelings for Emma grew more complex with each passing day. He was torn between the comfort and stability of his marriage to Olivia and the exhilarating unpredictability of his relationship with Emma. He rationalized his actions, convincing himself that he could maintain both worlds without either ever colliding. But deep down, he knew that the truth had a way of surfacing, and the risk of exposure loomed large. Emma, too, was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. She knew Ethan was married, and while part of her felt guilty, another part reveled in the forbidden nature of their affair. She was intoxicated by the idea of having something, someone, that wasn't meant to be hers. Yet, as her feelings for Ethan deepened, so did her resentment toward Olivia, the woman who had what she so desperately desired. Ethan's internal conflict began to take its toll. He became more secretive, his behavior increasingly erratic. Olivia, ever perceptive, noticed the changes in her husband. He was more distant, his attentions elsewhere even when they were together. She attributed it to stress from work, but the nagging suspicion that something more sinister was at play never left her. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with Olivia about his absences and distracted demeanor, Ethan fled to the studio, seeking solace in Emma's arms. As they lay together, tangled in each other's embrace, Emma whispered words that would haunt Ethan for days to come. "Leave her, Ethan. Leave Olivia and be with me," Emma pleaded, her eyes searching his for any sign of agreement. Ethan's heart raced. The thought of abandoning his family terrified him, yet the allure of a future with Emma was undeniable. He promised to consider it, to weigh his options, but in truth, he was paralyzed by indecision. As Emma slept beside him, Ethan's mind churned with conflicting thoughts. He knew he was at a crossroads and whichever path he chose would irrevocably alter the course of his life. The studio, once a sanctuary of creativity, had become a battleground for his conscience. Back at home, Olivia lay awake, her instincts telling her that something was deeply wrong. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, and she resolved to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Little did she know, her journey into the heart of her husband's betrayal was only just beginning, and the revelations that awaited her would shake the very foundation of her family. As dawn broke, Ethan returned home, his mind heavy with the weight of his secrets. He slipped into bed beside Olivia, careful not to wake her. But Olivia was already awake, her eyes closed, pretending to sleep as she silently vowed to find out what was really going on. The stage was set for a confrontation that would lay bare the lies and deceptions that had infiltrated their lives, leaving none of them unscathed. Olivia awoke the next morning, the weight of her suspicions pressing down on her. She went through the motions of her day, tending to their son Tom and preparing for her shift at the hospital. All the while, her mind churned with thoughts of Ethan's unusual behavior. She decided it was time to take action. If there was one thing she knew for certain, it was that the truth had a way of revealing itself. At the hospital, Olivia immersed herself in her work. As a general practitioner in Oak Ridge's only decent hospital, she had a steady stream of patients to attend to. The bustling environment was a welcome distraction from her personal turmoil. Yet, her thoughts kept drifting back to Ethan and his late nights at the studio. Meanwhile, Ethan tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. He continued teaching at the atelier, his interactions with Emma increasingly strained as the tension between his double life grew unbearable. Emma, sensing his reluctance to leave Olivia, began to pressure him more. Their once passionate meetings became fraught with arguments and tears, Emma demanding more than Ethan was willing to give. One afternoon, as Olivia was finishing up her last patient, she noticed an unfamiliar name on her schedule: Emma. Curious, she called the name, and a young, attractive woman stepped into her office. Emma seemed nervous, her eyes darting around the room before settling on Olivia. They exchanged pleasantries, and Emma described her symptoms, which were fairly routine. But there was something about her that unsettled Olivia, an inexplicable feeling that this woman was somehow connected to her growing sense of unease. As she conducted the examination, Olivia tried to engage Emma in conversation, probing subtly for any personal details. Emma remained guarded, revealing only that she was new to town and had recently started taking art class. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. This be a coincidence, or was there more to this seemingly ordinary patient? Later that evening, Olivia decided to confront Ethan. She approached him gently, asking about his day and his plans for the upcoming week. Ethan, caught off guard by her sudden interest, fumbled through his responses. Sensing his discomfort, Olivia pressed further, mentioning the new patient she had met earlier. Ethan's face paled at the mention of Emma's name, but he quickly regained his composure, dismissing it as a coincidence. Over the next few days, Olivia's suspicions continued to grow. She began discreetly gathering information about Emma, piecing together the fragments of her life. The more she learned, the more convinced she became that Emma was more than just a student of Ethan's. She was certain that Emma was the source of the strain in their marriage. Determined to uncover the truth, Olivia decided to follow Ethan to his studio one evening. She waited until he left the house, then quietly trailed him in her car. Her heart pounded as she parked a block away from the atelier, watching as Ethan disappeared inside. She waited for what felt like hours, her anxiety mounting with each passing minute. Eventually, she saw Emma arrive. Olivia's suspicions were confirmed as she watched Emma enter the studio, greeted by Ethan with an embrace that was far too intimate for a teacher and student. Her heart shattered. Olivia drove away, her mind reeling from the betrayal. Back at home, Olivia tried to process her emotions. She felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. Her thoughts turned to Tom, their innocent son who had no idea his family was on the brink of collapse. She knew she had to confront Ethan, but she needed to be strategic. A confrontation driven by anger could push him further away and worsen the situation. The following evening, Olivia sat Ethan down after Tom was asleep. She told him about her suspicions and what she had seen at the studio. Ethan, realizing he could no longer hide the truth, confessed to the affair. He admitted to being caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between his love for Olivia and the intoxicating allure of Emma. Olivia listened in stunned silence, her heart breaking with each word. She felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal, but also a strange sense of relief. The truth was finally out in the open, and now they could begin to address the issues in their marriage. Ethan, racked with guilt, promised to end things with Emma and recommit to their family. Olivia, though deeply hurt, agreed to try and work through their problems for the sake of their son. They decided to seek counseling, hoping to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. However, the journey to reconciliation would not be easy. Emma, feeling betrayed and abandoned, became increasingly erratic. She began to harass Ethan, showing up unannounced at the studio and even calling Olivia at the hospital, threatening to expose their affair publicly. Olivia and Ethan's lives were thrown into turmoil. as they struggled to navigate the aftermath of the affair. Their once peaceful existence in Oak Ridge was now marred by tension and uncertainty. Olivia, determined to protect her family, stood by Ethan's side, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. As they continued to rebuild their relationship, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the end of their troubles. She remained vigilant, wary of Emma's next move. The affair had left an indelible mark on their lives, and the road to recovery would be long and arduous. Through it all, Olivia held on to the hope their love would prevail, that they could emerge from this ordeal stronger and more united than before. Little did she know, true test of their resilience was yet to come, and the revelations she had uncovered were just the beginning of a much darker and more complex web of deceit. Days following Ethan's confession were a whirlwind of emotions for Olivia. She focused on her work at the hospital, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos that had enveloped her personal life. She had managed to avoid Emma since their last encounter, but the thought of her lingered in the back of Olivia's mind like a dark cloud. One afternoon, Olivia was reviewing patient files when she saw Emma's name again. Her heart skipped a beat. Emma had come in for a follow-up appointment. Olivia took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She decided it was time to confront this situation head-on. Emma entered the room, looking more nervous than before. Her usual confidence was replaced by a palpable sense of anxiety. Olivia conducted the routine checks, trying to maintain a professional demeanor despite the turmoil within her. As she examined Emma, she noticed something unusual. Olivia ordered a series of tests, suspecting a potential health issue. The results came back later that day, confirming Olivia's worst fears. Emma was pregnant. The realization hit Olivia like a ton of bricks. She sat in her office, staring at the results, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. This revelation would not only shatter their fragile attempts at reconciliation, but also complicate their lives in ways she couldn't have imagined. Olivia called Emma back to her office. Emma walked in, her face a mask of apprehension. Olivia took a deep breath and broke the news as gently as she could. "Emma, the tests show that you're pregnant." Emma's eyes widened in shock. She sat down heavily, her face going pale. "Pregnant? That can't be. I can't be pregnant." Olivia watched as the reality of the situation dawned on Emma. The younger woman looked utterly lost, her earlier bravado crumbling in the face of this life-altering news. Emma started to speak, her voice trembling. "Can't have a baby. I'm not ready for this. What am I going to do?" As Olivia listened to Emma's panicked ramblings, part of her felt a pang of empathy. Despite the betrayal, Emma was still a young woman facing an unexpected and daunting future. However, the other part of Olivia was consumed by a fierce protectiveness over her own family. This revelation threatened everything she held dear. Emma's words tumbled out in a rush. "Ethan? He doesn't know. What do I tell him? How do I tell him?" Olivia's heart ached at the mention of her husband's name. She maintained her composure, offering Emma a tissue. "You need to take some time to think about your options, Emma. This is a lot to process." Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to do, Dr. Olivia. I'm scared." Olivia's mind raced with conflicting emotions. She wanted to protect her family from the fallout of Ethan's infidelity, but she also knew that Emma needed support. She chose her words carefully. "Emma, you need to talk to Ethan. This is something you both need to face together." Emma nodded again, her expression a mix of fear and uncertainty. "I will. Thank you, Dr. Olivia." As Emma left the office, Olivia felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She knew she had to confront Ethan with this new development, but the thought of it made her stomach churn. She drove home in silence, her mind a tumultuous storm of anger, betrayal, and sorrow. That evening, Olivia sat Ethan down once more. Took a deep breath, bracing herself for the difficult conversation ahead. "Ethan, we need to talk. I saw Emma at the hospital today. She's pregnant." Ethan's face drained of color. He stared at Olivia, his eyes wide with shock and guilt. "Pregnant? Are you sure?" Olivia nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, the tests confirmed it. This changes everything, Ethan. What are we going to do?" Ethan buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I don't know. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you, Olivia." Olivia felt her heart break all over again. She reached out, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "We need to face this together, for Tom's sake. We have to figure out a way to move forward." The days that followed were a blur of tense discussions and painful revelations. Emma's pregnancy hung over them like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over their attempts to rebuild their relationship. Olivia struggled to find a balance between her professional responsibilities and the emotional turmoil at home. Emma, meanwhile, was grappling with her own fears and uncertainties. The news of her pregnancy had shaken her to her core. She felt overwhelmed by the enormity of the situation and the potential consequences of her actions. She wasn't ready to be a mother, and the prospect of raising a child with Ethan amidst the chaos of their affair seemed impossible. One evening, Emma showed up at Olivia and Ethan's doorstep, eyes red and swollen from crying. Olivia answered the door, her heart heavy with dread. Emma stood there, clutching her stomach, her face a mask of desperation. "I need to talk to both of you." They sat down in the living room, the air thick with tension. Emma took a deep breath and began to speak. "I can't do this. I can't have this baby. I'm too young, and I'm not ready. I don't know what to do." Ethan reached out to comfort her, but Olivia intervened. "Emma, this is a decision that only you can make. But you need to consider all your options and think about what's best for you and the baby." Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I feel so lost." Olivia felt a surge of sympathy for the young woman. Despite everything, she couldn't ignore Emma's pain. She took Emma's hand, offering her a lifeline. "We'll support you, whatever you decide, but you need to take the time to think this through." As the three of them sat in the living room, the weight of the situation pressed down on them. Olivia knew that their lives had been irrevocably changed by this revelation. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was determined to face them head-on. For her family's sake, and for her own sense of closure, she needed to find a way to navigate this storm. Little did she know, the journey they were about to embark on would test their resilience and redefine their relationships in ways they could never have imagined. The days following Emma's tearful confession were fraught with anxiety and uncertainty. Olivia and Ethan found themselves in a delicate dance, trying to balance their strained marriage while offering Emma support she needed. The emotional toll weighed heavily on Olivia. She steeled herself, determined to face this challenge head-on. Emma spent many sleepless nights contemplating her future. The reality of her pregnancy was overwhelming, and the fear of the unknown gnawed at her. She avoided Ethan and Olivia as much as possible, retreating into her own thoughts. Despite her youth, she knew the gravity of her situation. She couldn't make this decision lightly. One afternoon, Olivia found Emma sitting alone in the hospital's courtyard. She approached cautiously, not wanting to intrude, but sensing that Emma needed someone to talk to. Emma looked up, her eyes red from crying, and managed a weak smile. "Mind if I join you?" Olivia asked gently. Emma nodded, and Olivia sat down beside her. For a few moments they sat in silence, the weight of the situation hanging between them. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to do, Olivia. I'm so scared." Olivia reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Emma's. "It's okay to be scared, Emma. This is a huge decision. But you're not alone in this. Whatever you decide, we'll be here to support you." Emma looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Can't believe I got myself into this mess. I never meant to hurt anyone, especially you." Olivia's heart ached at Emma's words. Despite the betrayal, she couldn't help but feel compassion for the young woman. "I know, Emma, and while this is a difficult situation, we have to focus on what's best for you and the baby." Emma nodded, wiping her tears. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about considering all my options, and I think I want to keep the baby." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. This was a pivotal moment, and she knew the implications it would have for all their lives. She squeezed Emma's hand, offering her a comforting smile. "That's what you want? Then we'll support you every step of the way." Emma looked relieved, but the fear in her eyes remained. "But what about Ethan? How do I tell him?" Olivia took a deep breath, preparing herself for the difficult conversation ahead. "We'll tell him together. He needs to know, and he needs to be a part of this decision too." Later that evening, they gathered in the living room, the tension palpable. Ethan sat across from Emma, his expression a mix of guilt and worry. Olivia sat beside Emma, ready to offer her support. Emma took a deep breath, summoning the courage to speak. "Ethan, I have something to tell you," she began, voice trembling. "I've decided to keep the baby." Ethan's eyes widened in shock. He looked from Emma to Olivia, his face pale. "You're sure about this?" Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'm sure. I know it's going to be hard, but I want to do this." Ethan buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. Olivia reached out, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We need to face this together, Ethan. For the sake of the baby." Ethan looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "You're right. We need to be there for the baby. And for Emma." As the days turned into weeks, the three of them navigated the complexities of their new reality. Olivia and Ethan worked hard to rebuild their relationship, attending counseling sessions and trying to regain the trust that had been shattered. Emma, meanwhile, focused on her pregnancy, preparing herself for the challenges ahead. The small town buzzed with rumors, but Olivia held her head high, determined to protect her family from the prying eyes of their neighbors. She threw herself into her work at the hospital, finding solace in helping others, even as her own life remained in turmoil. One evening, as Olivia and Ethan sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "Olivia, I know this isn't easy, but I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you're doing. I know I messed up, and I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused you." Olivia looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and remorse in his gaze. "Ethan, this is hard for all of us. We have to stay strong for Tom and for the baby. We can get through this, one day at a time." Ethan nodded, taking her hand in his. "I love you, Olivia, and I'm committed to making this work, no matter what." As they sat there, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but she was determined to face it with courage and resilience. They had a long way to go, but as long as they faced it together, she believed they could overcome anything. The months that followed were a period of adjustment and healing. Emma's pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Olivia found herself growing closer to the younger woman. Despite the circumstances that had brought them together, they developed a bond rooted in mutual support and understanding. Ethan did his best to make amends, working tirelessly to regain Olivia's trust. He devoted himself to his family, making sure to spend quality time with both Olivia and Tom. Their counseling sessions helped them navigate the complexities of their relationship, and slowly but surely, they began to rebuild the foundation of their marriage. As Emma's due date approached, Olivia and Ethan prepared for the arrival of the baby. They transformed a spare room into a nursery, painting the walls a soft, calming blue and filling it with everything the baby would need. Tom, excited about becoming a big brother, helped them pick out toys and decorations. One evening, as they put the finishing touches on the nursery, Olivia felt a sense of peace wash over her. Despite the challenges they had faced, they were stronger for it. She looked at Ethan, who was gently rocking Tom to sleep in the corner of the room, and felt a surge of love and gratitude. "Thank you, Ethan," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion, "for everything." Ethan looked up, his eyes meeting hers. "No, Olivia, thank you for giving us a second chance." As they stood there watching their son sleep, Olivia knew that they had come a long way. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever the future held, together. The day Emma went into labor was a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. Olivia stayed by her side throughout the delivery, offering support and encouragement. When the baby finally arrived, a beautiful, healthy girl, Olivia felt a surge of emotion. This child, despite everything, was a symbol of new beginnings. Ethan arrived at the hospital shortly after, his face a mix of joy and relief. He took the baby in his arms, his eyes filling with tears. "She's perfect," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Emma looked at Olivia, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Olivia, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." Olivia smiled, her heart full. "We're a family now, Emma, and we'll get through this together." As they stood there, the weight of the past months seemed to lift. They had faced their demons and come out stronger on the other side. The future was uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. The months that followed were filled with joy and challenges as they adjusted to their new family dynamic. Olivia and Ethan continued to work on their relationship, finding strength in their shared love for their children. Emma, despite her initial fears, embraced motherhood with grace and determination. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset over the small town, Olivia felt a sense of contentment. They had come a long way, and though the journey had been difficult, they had emerged stronger and closer than ever. As the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Olivia took Ethan's hand in hers. "We've been through so much, but we made it. And I'm so grateful for our family." Ethan squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with love. "Me too, Olivia. Me too." As they sat there watching the sky, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, as a family. And that, Olivia realized, was the greatest gift of all.